Management Digital, and I'm one of the producers of the Digital Construction Awards. Joining me are, I'll take this as they appear in front of you, Simon White, Chief Digital Officer at Mott MacDonald, then Alexandra Bolton, OBE, founder of the built environment Connective, then Teresa Gonzalez Rico, Associate Director from AtkinsRealis, and Mohammad Alfaour, Director of Middle East at Egnyte, the sponsor of this session. The theme that we've been set for the next half hour is why change? The increasing importance of information management. We've got slightly less than 30 minutes to address this weighty topic. Let's jump straight in. Alexandra, why change? Does it matter? What happens if we don't?
Absolutely, it matters. We have some huge challenges locally, nationally, globally, and these are all interconnected and complex wicked problems. They require us to think about the system and how the different systems interconnect, but we don't generally work or think in a joined up manner. And we know that both our organizations and our information is not joined up. We also know the built environment is incredibly important. Almost all of these grand challenges that we have, they have their roots in the built environment and therefore their solutions in the built environment, whether we're talking about climate resilience, infrastructure equity, public health. We need to get more from less, especially in this time of really tight finances. We need to be able to make those decisions and trade-offs. And we need to get better value, social, economic, and environmental value from our built environment. So why change? Simply, we can't begin to solve these wicked problems of our time if we don't have the correct information, and that information is interoperable and managed correctly. We talk about having the right information in the right hands at the right time, and the information's right. And we have to join up those silos of information. And that's the change we have to make.
Okay, all right, thank you. Teresa, your thoughts, why change?
Yeah, hi. Echoing a little bit Alexandra's thoughts, I believe that we can really unlock a lot more value when we're sharing information rather than keeping it closed up. And it really is a way of kind of taking the work that we all do to the next level. So we, nowadays have the ability and, the tools and technologies to actually make the next kind of step change in how we use information of the built environment. And of course, this is very true of building information management, of course. But also if we think about kind of other examples, like how we use information for asset management and how we apply that to roadworks, then, we strengthen that case for information management. So just to draw on an example, in the National Underground Asset Register, for example, by improving access to data of the utilities that are buried, we're really we can see how we can avoid asset strikes and reduce delays, but also ultimately we can save lives. So, it's a massive case for exchange of information in a way that is, of course, secure and safe, but it really demonstrates how you can unlock that kind of not just individual organizations' value, but also, economic value across the country as well.
Excellent. Okay. All right. Simon, do you want to give us your perspective on why change?
Yeah, I think why would change from my point of view, I'm a pragmatist, so I've been involved in major project delivery and enterprise digital transformation for quite a while now. Major infrastructure projects in particular are becoming more and more complex, vast amounts of data. If that data is not managed correctly, then it can become noise and it can cost time and it can cost money. Where it is managed correctly on projects like Hinkley Point C, on projects in my previous role in Volker West UK and now with Mott MacDonald, we're seeing where the value of information management and the information management initiative can actually turn that noise into value. So I think that's the first thing of really looking at it from a structured information. I think the second thing is that when projects get so big, they have to be data driven. So if we're going to meet the requirements of the construction playbook and look at efficiency in terms of both time and productivity as well, you've got to be data driven, and you can't really be data driven if you don't follow information management practices. And then the third thing for me is that artificial intelligence, that means everything to everyone. But I just see artificial intelligence as the next big change in the industry. And in my opinion, you cannot really get the value out of artificial intelligence and make it an accelerator and an enabler if you're not data driven. So I think the artificial intelligence bit is the shiny side of things. But fundamentally, if you don't get the data right and the information management right, then we're not going to make the change.
Okay, that's great. And Mo, what's your answer to the why change question?
Yeah, thanks, Justin. My answer to that is that change is already here, and we've been seeing it happen over the years. So whether we like it or not, we've already been part of that change. In my past, I was an information manager in the industry. And one of the things that I've been seeing over the past 15 years is that we're dealing with more and more data, more stakeholders, tighter regulations. So information management isn't just about storing data, it's about trust in many ways. So if you can't find what you need when you need it securely, you're kind of flying blind. So information management, the initiatives of IMI really are aiming to give that visibility and confidence to build smarter and safer, like the team's been saying.
Yeah, okay, all right. Well, on to the next question. Who should lead the change, and how, and what actions should they take? Alexandra, I'll turn to you first again.
Thanks, Justin. Well, for me, this has to be a collaborative change. It's not something that can be done to us, or it needs to be done with everybody. So it's beyond that old style top-down authoritarian leadership of the last century. It's about creating visionary, boundary-spanning and outcomes-focused leadership, working across the systems, across organizational sectoral boundaries. What actions do those leaders need to take? They need to collaborate. I would talk about they need to collaborate on the rules and absolutely compete on the game. We know this is a commercial space, but collaboration on those rules, making sure things are set up well, properly, and in a joined up manner, which is why the IMI is so important.
Okay, all right. Simon, who should lead the change?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it might sound like a little bit of a cop-out, but I think everyone needs to lead in their own way, and I think that the change starts with clients. I think sometimes we can rely on clients too much or make it their problem. I think we need to really understand the client's problems, what they're actually trying to achieve in these major critical infrastructure projects, and really understand the outcomes. So for me, if we start at the end and then realize that clients can't do it by themselves, it's everybody within the network, all stakeholders, all consultants, contractors, everybody's got to take their kind of part to play. So I guess the leadership for me has to be shared. The client has to set out the requirements and make sure we all understand the outcomes. Sometimes we can get caught up in the detail, but I think if we start at the end, understand the outcomes, and then I think for me, it has to be very pragmatic. If you can show the value that you're actually creating in terms of reducing rework, waste, managing risk, and then delivering on major infrastructure programs on time and within budget, once those benefits are visible, then I feel we'll see adoption accelerate very quickly.
Okay, all right. Teresa, who should lead the change?
Yeah, so absolutely, it's a collaborative effort. I mean, clients will, I think they have a massive role to play in what they ask for, right? And it's really asking of all of us, consultants and contractors and the rest of the supply chain, to set a higher standard of doing things differently. But of course, we need to be able to kind of respond to that and to be ready. So it is really important for all of us in the industry to kind of understand, how we apply information management, not just in projects, but also, in our own organization. So I think that what it does is that really starts to create that culture around information management and exchange. And then it's also really important that we we look across those organizations that help us standardize and kind of create common languages and common ways of expressing data, and of course, in how we do that. In common approaches, right? So it's really, when we're talking about information management, if we're not speaking the same language, then it becomes really difficult. So again, in my recent experience in NUAR, we very much looked at how we could develop kind of an implementation of the MADI model. And what that meant is that information of the underground is all kind of described in a format that is common to across the industry, across all the sectors. So every water, gas, electricity, or telecoms pipe or cable is expressed in a format that we can all then exchange. And it's not a change that happens overnight. I think it's a change that starts with changing the culture, understanding that information shared is valuable, and that we will all benefit from that at the end of the day. And importantly, keeping an eye on the outcome that we're trying to achieve, just echoing Simon's point. But also, I think it's really important that we think about who are going to be the users of this information, and that we put ourselves in the shoes of the users of this information. It's not it's not the same somebody in the office kind of using information on their desktop than it is somebody on site who is about to break ground and they need to access information in a different way. So really, it is a systemic change, and there is a culture shift that we all need to be part of.
Excellent. Right. And Mo, who should lead the change and how?
Yeah, thanks, Justin. So I'm going to reiterate what everyone was saying, and this is based on some experience of seeing change management, digital transformation projects globally. But like my fellow panelists have been saying, it does start at the top, but it is also kind of grassroots, in my opinion, because you really want to meet in the middle. So that's where a lot of the success is. It's when you get to that middle management, and where folks can actually start to drive those value drivers. And one thing I'd like to say, when it comes to information management, we should think about it like we did HSE. HSE has come a very long way. So I would say we should think about it that way, because it's only when it's embedded in the culture, like HSE is in many respects globally now, that very much was a journey. So top down, bottom up, meet in the middle. That's my
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, I think it's taken us a long time to get really make progress on health and safety. Hopefully we can do quicker on information management. I'm just going to bring in a comment from Javid from the audience. Everyone is responsible, but perhaps clients need to be accountable by defining in broad terms what they need, why they need it, and when. And that in turn is driven by understanding what performance outcomes they need to meet their ongoing business objectives. It's not just what information, but also an understanding how that information should perform. Phil Thompson says culture is the biggest barrier. We should challenge our own processes as well as others. Thank you for those, and thank you for the comments. Ask questions, throw in comments, and we'll try and tackle them as we go before the end. So, third question, we're moving into this. We've touched on it ever so slightly. So, how do we ensure all parts of the built environment are changing, or does that even matter if enough clients and enough tier one contractors are changing and, shall we say, compel their supply chain to change? Alexandra.
Thanks. So I don't think it's necessary for all parts to change at the same pace. There will always be leaders or followers, or however you want to phrase it, early adopters. I think it's really important to run with the willing, those groups, organizations, and people who are able and willing to make that change happen. And as Simon mentioned, to work together towards the outcomes that we want when we're looking at this change. I think that procurement has a vital role to play, making sure that strong information management is embedded in the contracts, because commercially we're all tied to what it says in the contracts. And following on from what Teresa and Phil have said, we need to consider the socio-technical, not just the technical. Because if people can't or won't use the tech, it's just a shiny ornament gathering dust. So making sure that the training, the contracts, the ethics, the ways of working, the liabilities are covered so that people can make the change.
Yeah. Okay. Teresa.
Yeah. So I think that there is. I think it's important to give a lot of organizations in our industry and across sectors time also to adapt to this new change. I mean, some of our bigger consultancies, we might be perhaps able to ready ourselves faster. There's different challenges that different organizations face. But I think it's important to kind of leverage things like the Information Management Initiative, for example, that shares a lot of kind of knowledge and information about how to go about this change, and also kind of supports communities to do that, and help kind of pass on that message, and also kind of support with the actual real tools. I think it's also really important to make sure that we are sharing our experiences. So, when there is, in any project, like we are able to kind of quantify how information management actually supported, a faster delivery or a safer one. And I think those examples that can be quantified, and then there is also a pound sign next to those, can actually start to build the evidence base, for everyone to eventually embrace this change and see that it is valuable for both our clients, our society, but also for our organizations, and also personally for everyone who is in the workforce these days. Information management and digital more widely is just embedding everywhere in everything we do. So yeah, I think not everyone has to change at the same time, but I think we need to use as many tools as we can to kind of support, pulling everyone into that kind of information-rich future.
Okay, all right. Simon, what your thoughts on ensuring all parts of the built environment are changing?
Yeah, I guess I feel very fortunate because I've had a career where mainly focused around major projects, major project delivery, but doing that in different locations over the world. I've had roles in consultancy. I've done 6 or 7 years as a CDO for a contractor, and what that's given me is the ability to look across all of the different personas within what we're trying to do with information management and digital transformation. And I think, as I said earlier, I think we need to start at the end. Digital and information management, it's a people challenge. It's not really a technical challenge from my point of view, and everybody's at a different level of maturity. I'm having the same conversations today that I was having 15 years ago with people, and that's okay, because everybody is at a different level of maturity, and we have to accept that. So I feel that everybody does have to change, but not at the same pace. You've got to look at it very individually, and that's from an individual person and an individual company level, and really understand why we're changing. Make it pragmatic, make it meaningful, and if you do that and people understand why they're changing, I think that's when you get real world progress, and it's not just talking about the technical stuff. So as I say, transformation is people first, but I think the other big sort of tipping point that I'm seeing is that I've been fortunate to be able to set up information management academies, change large groups of people from, say, document controllers into information managers. That's a challenge in itself, but I believe that AI, I think, is going to be an equalizer for that. I think it's going to be an accelerator for that. I feel it's going to take away a lot of the automation, the sort of manual stuff that we would do within information management. We're testing tools at the minute that will give us our information management compliance through AI. You could say that people maybe won't learn or be educated through that, but it is going to, I think, equalize everybody to a certain level. So I think that it's actually going to free us up to then focus on the outcomes of information management, and then the collaboration that will come from that, because everybody understands, and we're not stuck in the kind of some of the process loops that we can get stuck in, and fundamentally focused on value. What's the pragmatic value that we can actually create? What does that mean to each individual stakeholder? So I do think that everybody needs to change, but very much at their own pace.
Excellent. Okay. Mo, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. I'll pick a few things here that the team said also, but it's no secret. I think essentially not everybody needs to change all at once. It's not a big bang approach. It never is. In fact, big bang never works. So it's about really rallying the various stakeholders and the supply chain to help prioritize. Prioritization is the key. And then not all change is created equal. So for pre-construction teams, it could be as simple as leveraging baseline data to validate concept design or costing estimates. For other functions, perhaps operations, so post-construction and handover, asset delivery, taking advantage of the information as the outputs, like Simon said, to be able to track maintenance tickets properly and leverage O&Ms. The one thing that I would say that maybe differs a little bit to what some of the team said, but it goes to what Teresa and Alexandra were saying as well, is the use of certain systems and technologies is going to be key. Simon said AI is going to be an enabler and accelerant. I 100% agree, but technology is going to be at the core of that. So what I would urge everyone to do is to think about who you partner up with when it comes to technology, because just like you partner with various stakeholders on projects for delivery, you very much are looking for a partner from technology perspectives as well. So that's one of the things that I would point out.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm going to pull some comments, and there's one or two questions appearing from the audience. Don't be shy. It's virtual. There's no embarrassment factor here. There's a comment from Nick Nisbet and then a question from Nick Nisbet. I'm going to do his comment first. Don't say culture, say competency, then educate. But his question is change management the right focus when continuing evolution is a better approach? Who wants to volunteer to respond to that, react to that?
I'm happy to. Just
yeah, go ahead, Simon.
So I guess personally, I think it's the same thing. So whether you're evolving or whether you're changing, you're going from point A to point B. Currently within MacDonald, we have a process where we look at a project and we assess how they're working, and then we assess how they could work. And that's a baseline individually for that group of people. Once we increase their floor, if you like, their ways of working, that team then brings that to the next project that they look at, and so on and so on. So it's an evolution, but it's also a change management initiative. So I'm very much I believe in the aggregation of small gains rather than sort of big bang and big change, because that's how we operate as human beings. So it might sound like a cop-out, but I think there's no difference between evolution and change from my point of view.
I'm going to throw. Oh, go on. One of you is about to chip in there, or am I going to put someone on the spot? I'm going to put Alexandra on the spot.
I completely agree with Simon. For me, those two are synonymous. There are some parts of the change that we could potentially do quite quickly, and others will take a long time. And the change won't happen like a big bang. As Mo said, it will happen in different places at different rates and in different ways, and that's okay. As long as that transformation is happening, that's okay.
Yeah. Teresa or Mo want to have a...
Yeah, I was just gonna add, maybe just to kind of take Nick's point. I think maybe sometimes change management might feel more like an intervention in time, and I think in some ways that's how I have seen clients kind of almost want to try and start their journey, right? Which is kind of it's just become this kind of term in the industry, but I think that it could be a starting point, right? Like where you have an intervention and you think about that, the why you want to change and how would you kind of intervene within a project or within your organization to do that. I think those interventions are nothing if you don't then have a kind of more sustainable future plan and continuous kind of improvement into the future. And I think it maybe sometimes it's seen as maybe an intervention that then means you start your journey to that kind of continuous evolution into the future. So I can see the difference, I think, and perhaps for me is that kind of potentially Kickstarter intervention that helps into the kind of longer term journey.
Okay. Mo, any thoughts?
Yeah, thanks, Justin. And I was just enjoying reading everybody's comments here because I love the kind of getting the creative juices, and you can feel a lot of passion behind this conversation, which I was enjoying. Like we've all been saying, it's a journey and it's different for everybody where they're at. So I think the goal is essentially prioritize, right? Go back, find out where you're at, where you're planning to go, and then you can start to strategize on how to get there. For some people, it's as simple as creating a folder structure that doesn't exist yet, or maybe there's like 10 versions. So then you just pick one and start to standardize. So there's so many quick wins. And I know that could be maybe a trigger for some folks hearing that term, quick wins, but there's so many of them out there. Like, it's crazy. That's what I'd say for now.
Yeah, okay. I'm just going to read out some of the comments just in case people aren't reading the comments. David Webborn, agree entirely that it is a people challenge. Changing people behaviours is the biggest headwind. Information management standards come from traditional engineering disciplines, yet for large multidisciplinary projects, we have diverse teams of not only engineers, but scientists and many other technical backgrounds for whom IM standards and ways of working remain a fairly alien concept. Matt McCarter, reacting to Javid's earlier comment, there are many parts of the supply chain that are not capable or aware of the need for structured information management. Again, that goes back to that the entirety of the supply chain and getting them all on board. I think we've lost Alexandra, but we won't worry. I'm sure she'll be back in a second, hopefully. Are you there, Alexandra? She's not. We're getting towards the end of our time. So what I want to do is ask the panel if they have any calls to action that they want to share with the audience this morning. So I was going to ask Alexandra first, but she's disappeared. So I'm going to ask one of you to put your hand up to go first, rather than, or otherwise I'll be putting one of you in the deep end. I think it's going to be Mo. You're smiling and you've got.
I'm happy to go first. Yeah. Thanks, Justin. So I'd like to say this. I often like to think about information management like this. If your data could talk, what story would it tell? So don't treat information management or change management or whatever the case is like an IT initiative. It's a business enabler, like we've been saying, like Simon has said a few times today. Essentially, if you approach it right, it's going to enhance you and your stakeholders day to day. So like I was saying, start small, map one process, standardize one folder structure, roll it out, repeat, and then the momentum will build off of that. So quick wins, small wins, anything's a win, essentially. A win is a win. So I would say go ahead and get out there and get your first win.
The most important step is the first step, etc. Teresa, a call to action to the audience.
Yeah.
Yourself.
So for me, I think it's I think it should be very much around, what is it that you're trying to achieve? First of all, who is going to be using this information and then kind of think about, okay, then let's get that right information or data to that person's, into that person's fingertips, basically. So I think really taking a kind of a user-centric approach, I feel is really important. We're all users of the information, but we don't all use it the same way. So I think that would really enable also those that perhaps have less urgency to really kind of be able to start using information and data when they need it and kind of come on the journey.
Excellent. Okay. Simon, you're last.
Okay. I'll use a little bit of a strap line that I've used for the past 15 years. So I would say powered by data, driven by people. It can be a little bit of a dry subject, information management and data and so on, but Formula One's not a dry subject. That's exciting, and that's powered by data and driven by people. So that's sort of the strap line I've been using for quite a while. I would say if we own our information, we own our future. So that's really critical to me. Own it. Don't let someone else own it for you. But we've got to start today. A day that we don't start is a day that we're delaying.
Excellent. All right. Okay. Thank you very much. We're probably just about ready to wrap up. I'll just share a couple of comments. From Pete Birchall, once you have the why, breaking down the cultural barriers seems to become that little bit easier. And someone else mentioning data is the new oil. That had to get in there somewhere. Anyone doing the bingo card, that might be your first one of the day. So we're going to wrap it up there.